What is your secret that would absolutely destroy you if it was released? The truth is that for the first 7 years of my life, I was brought up as a girl by my psycho birth mother who really wanted a daughter and didn't let the snag of giving birth to a boy stop her from trying to raise one. She was a pretty successful professional in a legal field, not entirely sure what, and had me via anonymous sperm donor from a fertility clinic. She found out I was a boy at a late ultrasound and then moved across the country. Gave birth to me and brought me home. Continued to move around until I was about 5 or so. It was just the two of us all my life. We had contact with other people, of course, but they rarely got very close. I had lots of friends, but was always supervised. I found out way after that my mother's strong puritanical Christianity was a lie. She used to explain why she was so strict about me being private and never letting anyone else see me get changed or anything. I just accepted all this as a fact, having never been told anything different. I was sent to a religious school for girls and had a really great childhood. I was a bit of a tomboy and played with Legos and toy animals rather than dolls and stuff. But that's not unusual, and no one ever questioned if I was a girl. Even me. I knew about men and women, but had never really seen much of a naked person. My mother never ever spoke to me about it either, but I kind of had the impression that when I grew up and got boobs and stuff, downstairs would kind of fall off or something, and I would become a woman. And the other kids would keep their thing downstairs, and they'd be men. I don't know, to be honest, I never really thought about it. Anyways, I carried on with my happy girlhood, and had a bunch of friends and everything was great until I was 7, and a teacher accidentally spilt a hot cup of coffee over me at school. The liquid soaked through my clothes and was scalding me, so the staff immediately stripped me out of my dress, underwear, to get the coffee away from the skin. I guess that's when they found out. The cops were called, and I got taken to speak with who I guess would be social services. They asked me a bunch of questions about life at home and stuff. Meanwhile, my mother was taken in for questioning too. But she refused to acknowledge me as a male and insisted I was her daughter. Because she was, delusional and stuff. I wasn't allowed to go back home, but I got put into a foster family and went through loads of therapy and stuff. The worst part was, literally overnight, I lost everything. My mother, my home, all my toys, my clothes. I moved schools, so I lost all my friends. They cut all my hair off and told me I wasn't a girl anymore. It was really traumatic. The first foster home wasn't that great. They had 3 boys already, and going from a sheltered religious-only child upbringing to a rough-and-tumble testosterone-filled environment was really difficult. They tried to force me to be masculine, and I was just too confused about what they wanted. Anything girly was reprimanded, and I felt so lost and confused and alone because nothing I ever did was right. So, when I was 11, I tried to hurt myself, and again at 13 because I didn't feel I fitted anywhere. After the second attempt, they moved me to a different foster family, who were absolutely amazing. I consider them my parents. They actually stood up for me for the first thing, and they actually let me grow my hair back out. From when I've got taken into care, they buzzed my hair short, and I hated it. They always had to hold me down and do it forcibly when I cried and fight. My new parents flatly refused to do it and said that loads of boys had long hair. They also let me quit karate and football and take up swimming and jazz dance. Since I've been in care, no one ever stood up for my right to choose what activities to do or how to dress before. It was amazing. In the end, I came out with a pretty healthy gender identity. I'm a guy, but not the most butch guy ever. I'm fine with that. I went through school, got my degree, and have a pretty good job and an amazing supportive wife. Everything looks great. But I can never speak about my early childhood and how I grew up as a little girl. I run a cake business. I charge people hundreds of dollars for wedding cakes. Well, every last one is made using Pillsbury cake mix I buy for $1 a box at Walmart. I suck at baking. Every time I ever tried to make a cake from scratch, it sucked. But baking is like my whole deal. My friends all call me the cake girl. It's like my whole life is a lie. People compliment my cakes all the time, telling me how ridiculously delicious they are. Telling me it's so much better than the box mix cake. Telling me they could never bake a cake so delicious. Well, guess what? For $1, they can too make a cake just as delicious. All you do is add oil, eggs, and water. In my defense, I love cake decorating. I make all the frostings and fondant from scratch, and I just hate baking freaking cakes. I base my prices mostly on the decoration of the cake, and not on the cake itself, if that makes sense. Still, no one knows about this except for my husband. Even my best friend thinks I freaking slave over the oven mixing and baking these darn cakes. I've been doing this for years. If anyone knew, my business and reputation would be in the toilet for sure. I keep telling myself I have to learn how to make these darn cakes without box mixes, but I never do it. I feel like such a sham sometimes. I used to be a fire and police dispatcher, but had to quit because it nearly made me hurt myself. I actually had thoughts, but had to drive 40 miles to go to the center hospital where no one knew me for help. I have nightmares about a few calls I took where the caller hurt themselves. Well, hurt someone else, or passed away on the phone with me. To this day, a few years after resigning, I still can't listen to a phone ring, or sirens going off without having a mild panic attack. I'm fairly sure it's a form of PTSD with flashbacks, nightmares, panic attacks, and an inability to function sometimes. But I'm embarrassed and scared to tell my fiancé or go to a doctor for it. I know there are soldiers out there with real PTSD that deserve help far more than me. I'm very good at hiding it though. I also sometimes wait until my fiancé goes to sleep, and I'll then go sit and pretty much cry for several hours. It's an absolute nightmare. There was a girl who I had a crush on the moment I saw her on my college campus. She ended up dating a jerk a few weeks later. I happened to end up sitting in the study room with him, a few mutual friends. He talked about how he didn't think she was that attractive and how he liked other girls. I wrote the girl an anonymous email using one of those websites, telling her about the things I heard and how the guy was a jerk. She ended up breaking up with him after she found out he was cheating. Well, the girl's now my girlfriend of 6 months. She has no idea and is sitting across from me in the library. I've never told anyone this before. My daughter turns 5 next week. If anyone knew the truth behind her parentage, I could probably lose her forever. I grew up in a foster care system, never knew my parents or siblings. In my senior year, I met an older guy and we dated for almost a year, getting pregnant at about 7 months in. One night while we were watching TV, the subject somehow came around to our real parents. He'd been adopted as a young child. Turns out the man I was seeing, the father of my daughter, is my half-brother. We have the same mom. Our relationship did not last, and he's not in her life at all, per his own choices. My daughter's extremely smart, beautiful, and well-rounded. She'll never know the truth. Her father and I made a pact to never tell her. I just hope she never needs a kidney or something. Not like life-ruining, but makes me feel like crap every time I think about it. As I've told this here before, I have a blind brother. When we were young, I used to get so frustrated at all the extra attention he received and how I had to be more responsible with my siblings than my peers. So, when my brother and I would go play, go to the store, or just genuinely go anywhere without adults, I would abandon him somewhere unfamiliar to him. Then I would stand quietly off to the side and watch his anxiety set in as he tried to figure out where he was and was going on and on. Also, I was really intelligent as a child and knew that was my ticket to attention. When I would, quote, help my brother with his homework, I would teach him all the wrong answers so that I could continue being the smart sibling. Today, my brother is my best friend. He goes to college and lives by himself. He's become one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. I'm trying to make it up to him now by being the best big sister ever, but I still feel so guilty at how I found him a burden when I was a kid. I accidentally killed 7 people. I put a rag into a new water heater exhaust to keep debris out and installed it into a rental. I get a call a week later there's been an accident. I show up and there's a ton of EMS and police. They ask me where the gas shutoff is, and I go down to shut the gas off and see the end of the rag. I forgot sticking out the top of the heater. I rip that rag out, shut the gas, and headed upstairs only to be told all the tenants were dead. I drink all day now, and I sleep. It's killing me from inside every single day, but if I say anything, my family's ruined. We have a bunch of rental properties, and we'd be shut down. I still have imaginary friends. I'm almost 30. I lost them for a while, I don't know why or how, but if they were gone, I could not see them or hear them anymore. Not the way I used to when I was younger. It made me miserable. I kept hoping for one day to get them back. 2 weeks ago, I somehow managed to finally break through whatever that barrier was. I've spent the last 2 weeks hanging out with and talking to a character from a well-known TV show. I can't really see him visually, but I can see him with my mind's eye. He goes almost everywhere with me. He's sitting on my bed right now, waiting for me to get off my computer. I promised I'd get off a little while ago, but I had to check a little thread first. He's been coming to work with me every day for the past 2 weeks. I share my food with him. I kind of mentally duplicate it for him since he can't touch it in reality. I love it. I'm happy again. I realize most people would say he's not real, but something about him is I don't care. He's real to me. I lose sleep every night because I feel like I'm a crappy brother. My younger sibling's 5 years younger than me, and I always felt like I was a crappy role model and terrible example to him. I treated him like crap, and I really hindered his childhood. Now, he's one of my best friends, but we both know what happened, and I can never forgive myself. Yeah, I see people's confessions worse, like near hurting themselves and other stuff that was really ducked up, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect me. I love my brother, and I would take a bullet for him, but not a day goes by where I wish I could go back in time and change how I treated him when we were younger. I don't believe in regrets, but this will always be looming over my shoulders. I'm a schizophrenic. It's not super bad, but I could not ever tell anyone for obvious reasons. I get by through passing it off as bits of OCD, and it doesn't really interfere with my life any more than those would anyways. I'll probably never get married, though. I'm a 26-year-old male, and I visited 30 or more escorts over a 4-year period. This includes girls in Amsterdam, red light district, girls in Asian massage parlors. First time was about 6 months after breaking up with my first girlfriend. To be honest, I stopped counting how many times I've actually paid a visit to one of these girls. Was never very confident with the girls growing up, so this was much easier than actually having to put myself out there. I guess I'm actually fairly good looking and have much more confidence now. It's only in the last couple of years that I've come to realize how easy it is to attract girls. And sadly, recall how much time and money I've wasted on escorts. Been almost a year since I've made a last visit, though. I was jumped by a group of gang members a number of years ago. I was hospitalized and wound up with a concussion, broken jaw, 46 stitches, and tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills, and I'm still unable to pay. I know who all the gang members are and directly recognized one of the assailants and filed a police report. He had an alibi, and nothing ever came of my case. I had a run-in with him again a few years after that, and ended with the stitches and no charges sticking to my attackers. I see these gang members around town still. I get chased out of bars, and there are certain places I don't frequent because I know they could be there. I bought a handgun just a few short years ago for my own protection, and knowing these guys are not just going to let me slide if they run into me again, I carry it now if I know I'll be in problem areas and neighborhoods where these guys are. One night, not too long ago, my girlfriend and I were walking downtown when I noticed a large group of them hanging outside of a bar. I told my girlfriend to wait for me at another bar, not too far away, while I pulled my hat down over my face and put my hood up. I walked across the street to a construction zone where I could keep out of sight and still keep an eye on them clearly. A half hour later, two of them came walking across the street. Past the construction zone, I popped out and drew my gun. I fired at them twice, unknowingly missing the first one, but hitting the other in the gut. He kneeled over and let out a long groan before falling to the ground. I looked for the first one, and he was laying on the street a few yards away, ducking for cover. Thinking I had hit them both, I ran around the corner, pocketed my gun, then ran to hide by an overpass a couple blocks away. I texted my girlfriend, and she came and met up with me, and we took a cab home, which drove by the scene. The man that I shot is now in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the chest down. They, the police, the gang members, and the community, did not know who shot them. They think it was a rival gang. I still see them around town, and they're not any more weary, but I am armed and ready. I've only told my best friend this story. He told me not to tell anyone else, not only because I could get in trouble, but because it could change people's perception of me. My girlfriend never really asked what happened that night, but she expects me to tell her at some point. When my half-sister was growing up, she hated her stepdad, which was my real dad. I think he's a great guy, a little crazy though. They get along fine now. He was just weird and a little mean to my mom's other kids. He's a man of routine. Every morning he'd get up, get the paper, make freshly squeezed orange juice for himself, mom, me, but not for my half-sister. Then he goes to crap, shave and shower, then comes back to eat breakfast and drink the OJ. My sister used to pine for a glass of that OJ and got her revenge in quite trivial ways. Get to the shower before him, take a long time and make him late. She'd leave messages in the window, "I loathe you," and such. She then stepped it up and waited for him to finish making the OJ and go to the bathroom. She then snuck out, drank half his glass, savored every drop, and filled the rest of the glass up with her pee. Sat in place and waited. She then sat and watched him slurp down every last drop in complete satisfaction. She said after that, anything mean he did didn't really bother her. She'd just smile and think, "Ha, you drank my freaking pee and loved it." After that, their relationship actually got better as they weren't bickering anymore. They actually have a great relationship now. She asked when she can tell him. I said only on his deathbed. So we have that to look forward to, which is nice. When I was younger, like less than 6, my brother and sister and I had a game that we would play. Nothing sexual, but it was called Dare. Basically, the object of the game was to walk around the outside of our raised deck outside while holding on to the railing and walking on the very narrow ledge. We'd played the game before, and one day, my brother and I were outside alone, mom and sister busy inside, and I challenged him to play. My very fuzzy memory is that he didn't want to play, and I slightly pressured him. He gave in, and well, I went first. On his turn around, something happened, and I watched my 4-year-old brother crash to the ground below. He landed in a terrible position and broke his leg directly under his hip. He was in the hospital for 34 days, with a screw drilled completely through his knee that was used to hold his hip into position. He was in a body cast from the chest down for over 8 weeks, and had to go through months of being in a wheelchair and grueling physical therapy to be able to walk again. Now, almost 15 years later, my brother's legs are slightly different lengths, from the bones resetting differently, and has some minor muscle problems due to this. However, he was also named the best goalkeeper in our state last year, and he'll probably move out of state to follow his dream and play soccer. I love him more than he'll ever know, and more than I could ever express here. He's the smartest, most talented person I know, and I'm so proud of him. It breaks my little heart to every time I think about this childhood. I feel like I'm to blame for the months of pain that he had to endure. I'm crying from sadness and relief just as I type this. While on deployment, I killed a man. The feelings of taking a man's life always weigh a heavy burden on me every day. No one likes hurting people. He'd been hit by some of our mobile artillery, while part of me wanted the jerk to just be in pain. It wasn't right. My medic was busy with my wounded people, and as the officer on duty, I took out my .45. I put it to his head, and I pulled the trigger. I knew my boys wouldn't say anything, most just watch, accepted it as a fact of war, and kept walking. I remember throwing up afterwards, and I came home, and everyone acted like I was a hero. I never felt like more of a sham my entire life. I hate my significant other. She makes me feel like a crap on a regular basis. She's childish and always blames her issues on people around her. And for years, when we've gotten into fights or I'm trying to unload something, she shifts the blame back on me, or berates me or calls me a wimp or such. Multiple years of this have sapped all my self-confidence and cost me multiple friends. I feel like I can't address this or anything relating to her because it'll upset her. I'm aware that our relationship has and will ruin my life. But I don't have anything else in my life that's solid, and because we've built such a life together, I don't want to leave.